Is anything going on?
No.
She just went in.
Your timing was perfect.
Just went in. Her job really sucks.
I know.
Not that she.
I'm surprised you
That
remember.
really sucks. Show takes out.
That was kind of like cool.
He didn't leave him any room.
Yeah, it's true.
He had a third of a car on him. He didn't leave him any room.
Yeah.
Messing up my.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's good.
Oh.
No excuse for him.
Yeah.
It goes behind that cloud. I thought that cloud was going to go.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, we'll see. Probably pulling a car right here. They might park.
No, I don't think it's supposed to be here.
Stay.
Any other ideas in terms of
How much you charge for that win?
the freebie? We're running short on time.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, I'm not done.
First win's free.
Can you scoot it over here? Oh, you got it?
I'm out. Appreciate it.
Can you bend us down a little bit?
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Invoice will be in the mail for that. Technically.
Remember that. I remember that.
Huh? No. Yeah. That was appropriate. Well, it's gonna mess with us. Is that it? Oh yeah.
Anyone need a white balance besides us? No? Let me know when you're good. Good? You're okay. Everyone else good? Sure. Missed you this morning with the Cross Michelle. I know, I saw you.
How's everybody doing? All right, cool. Good afternoon, everyone. So 2 months ago, the federal government issued me a subpoena as here at this to appear before this courthouse, before the grand jury. As a general principle, I object to the whole institution of grand juries. Prosecutors run grand juries behind closed doors in secret. Based on my refusal to answer questions 2 months ago, the grand jury compelled me to, or in order to try to compel me to testify, they sent me into confinement. So I got released last week, and here I am today with the same subpoena, or a different subpoena with the same questions. Throughout this ordeal, I have had an enormous amount of support from some of the most closest people that I have, and also from like an enormous number of people online and through letters and through cards, and it's just been incredibly inspiring and really powerful for me. Jails and prisons exist as a dark institution, and despite that, it doesn't frighten me or disturb me. I mean, I've already been to jail, I've already been to prison, so attempting to coerce me with a grand jury subpoena is just not going to work. I will not cooperate with this or any other grand jury. So it doesn't matter what it is or what the case is, I'm just not going to comply or cooperate. Facing jail again, potentially today, doesn't change my stance. The prosecutors are deliberately placing me in an impossible position. Go to jail and face the prospect of being held in contempt again, or in the alternative, forgoing my principles, the strong positions that I have, that I hold dear. And the latter is a far worse prison or jail than the government could ever produce. So, the truth is that no matter what happens today, whether I'm placed in confinement or not, I'm not going to comply with this grand jury. Thank you. All right, questions?
You have to actually physically go to the grand jury, tell them that, and then get hauled in front of a judge?
So the government has already stipulated that they're going to ask the same questions, and so we've both agreed to waive appearing before the grand jury and just go straight into we filed this a motion to quash the subpoena, which will be argued, and then we might go into the contempt hearing following that.
Open to the public?
There's a number of very recent filings that have impacted whether or not it's going to be made public or not. There's a lot of behind-the-scenes motions and back and forth right now. The judge is Trenga.
It was 2 months last time. What do you know? Are we talking 12 months or 18 months? How long have you been told that this grand jury will be impaneled, that you might have to?
As far as I'm aware, this is a different grand jury. I mean, it is a different grand jury. As far as I'm aware, it could be an extended period of time, but we don't know that for sure.
Why are they doing this if they know that you're not going to testify? Why bother having you show up?
Well, I think that ultimately, this is an attempt to place me back in confinement. I think that the questions are the same questions that I was asked before the court-martial in 7-8 years ago. Like there's nothing new. They're not asking anything new. There's no new information that they're trying to get from me. In fact, the questions are very much the same things that I've gone over in that exhaustive, several hours long, and it's about this thick testimony. So I think that ultimately the goal here is to really, relitigate the court-martial from my perspective. They didn't like the outcome. I got out, so this is a way of, placing me back into confinement.
How long are you prepared to do this for? Keep going before grand juries where you're not going to answer this question? The ultimate jail?
Forever. Indefinitely.
Jail time.
So this is a jail and not a prison. Jails have fewer resources available. So if I'm in there for an extended period of time, it's going to impact my health. They don't have the same resource. You know, I had surgery recently, and I've had a few, thankfully not life-threatening complications, but I've had complications from the confinement that I just got out of. So they don't have the medical capacity to hold people in confinement for too long in a jail. So ultimately, if I'm in for years, that could really impact my health. So also the food in jails is 3 or 4 times worse.
Can you talk more specifically about what you think the government, what kind of information they want to get?
So the information that they want is they haven't identified a targeted individual. It's very broad and generic, and it's very much the same things that I was asked at my court-martial about what documents were leaked, when that happened. A lot of the same things. It's very sequential. It's not so much about how it was leaked. It was more about my intentions and when and the steps that I went through that process. So it's very very much information that's already out there that they could just go to the court-martial testimony and see that it's right there.
What hope, if any, do you have that either the new judge or the fact that you've been through 62 days and shown some resolve, what hope do either of those give you for a different outcome?
I think we have a very strong case. We have more evidence now. We have more information now about the grand jury subpoena. And this really is, even though it's a different subpoena, it is for the same questions. So this is based upon the information that we've learned from the previous process. We have a stronger case, I do believe.
Is there any discussion about whether you can put back in solitary if you are jailed again? Or an agreement with the government about that, your conditions?
As far as I'm aware, administrative segregation is not likely. So I think that I will be placed back into general population as it was last week. You know, whenever I went, I'll just be returning. I mean, I'll spend maybe a day in booking and then go back into confinement, into the general population. Any other questions?
What's your impression of Julian Assange's U.S. indictment and, your name being invoked in that?
So, I've actually reviewed the evidence in this case. Much of it is classified still, so I can't really talk about that. But what I can say is that and I've read the indictment, and I've read the affidavit that's attached to the indictment, and the case doesn't make sense. It seems kind of bananas in comparison to the evidence that we got out and the interviews that we've had. So it's just a very bananas case. It doesn't. I don't know what the government's doing with that. So.
How did it feel, though, to know he had just been arrested and then to see his indictment come out and see your name in there?
Well, I think what's more important here is the fact that there's already been an indictment. So if there's already an indictment, then why are we going through the grand jury process? So, because the purpose of the grand jury is to obtain indictments. It's not to review testimony or preview testimony. And that's one of the problems with that's one of the issues that we're raising, is that if this is for a case in which there's already an indictment, why is there a grand jury subpoena?
What about your lawyers talking about the government and surveillance on you?
We have raised electronic surveillance as a legal issue. I'm not sure. I'm not terribly sure what I can disclose about that. But what I can say for certain is that we do believe that we have strong evidence that unlawful electronic surveillance has taken place.
During your last experience in solitary, do you think you'll face similar scrutiny inside the jail from, attending officers in terms of constant surveillance and monitoring, even if you're not in solitary? Are you expecting a lot of pushback in the same way there? If you are interred again?
I think it's going to be very much a return to the conditions that I was in last week. All right. I think that's it. All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Getting up to the
Oh, you kidding me?